Hello, and first of all, thanks for having me. The talk is about road towards 365 bugs in Microsoft Office 365. So I will share some of the bug findings that I have during this journey. Of course, we don't have time for all like 365 bugs, but I will try to share some of the interesting findings. So let's start without wasting any time as who I am. So my name is Azure. I work as a security engineer. I had a chance to speak at different security conferences. And in 2018, Microsoft has recognized me as a #1 security researcher. And in 2019 and 2020, they categorized me or ranked me at a #4 most valuable security researcher. So anyone can participate in Microsoft bug bounty programs. So one more aspect of me is that I try to find bugs. And this is a sort of bug at a reasonable height. So now, if you plan to participate in Microsoft Bug Bounty Program, so in my experience, like in the last 3 to 4 years, I am only participating in Microsoft Bug Bounty Program. My only focus since last 3 to 4 years is Microsoft Bug Bounty Programs. I'm not participating in any other publicly available or privately available bug bounty program. So I solely focused here. So in my experience of like last 3 to 4 years of bug hunting in Microsoft, what you will experience if you will start doing it, like it revolves around 3 P's, like pain, patience, and Peso. Pain, like what type of pain? Like for example, if you plan to participate in Microsoft Bug Bounty Program, man, you report a bug, maybe they reply to you that they are not going to fix it because it is by design. Maybe it is like a duplicate, or maybe they are unable to reproduce. So there can be any reason. So you will suffer a setback. This would be like a demotivation. Patience. Patience is the key to success as far as participation in Microsoft Bug Bounty Program. Sometime, like I will not say that for every case that I reported, they responded immediately. Sometimes they responded very quickly. Sometimes they took like months, and the fix took a years also in some time. So you need to show patience. Like, and the most stupid thing, or the one thing that I really hate about asking all the time any update on my bug submission, and this you may experience when you will participate, because everything takes time if you participate in Microsoft Bug Bounty Programs. And as far as the bounty is concerned, because the idea, okay, nothing is for free in this world. So the reason you plan to participate in Microsoft Bug Bounty Program, that in return, you will get some reward. I heard, and I also experienced that in some platforms, you will be rewarded like within a few hours or within on the same day. But as far as Microsoft is concerned, in my experience, it may take like 3 to 4 weeks minimum time that you will be rewarded. But the last point is the most important. Like by the end of the day, you are rewarded if your bug is a valid submission. So if you are still interested in participation in Microsoft Bug Bounty Programs, I would say that go for this talk. Like this is the talk available online, a tour of Office 365 Azure and SharePoint through the eyes of Bug Hunter. I also share some of my experience earlier in this talk, so I would suggest you just quickly go through this talk. Office 365, nowadays they call it Microsoft 365. This is how it looks like. Like once you set up your Office 365 tenant online, there are different options. It's like an on-premises or it's like an online. I always prefer the online version. I never use the on-premise setup. For the bug hunting, I only solely focus on online version. So once you set up office.com, like a tenant, then you should see something like that on the screen. Like there is an Outlook, there's OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Flow, Dynamics, security, forms, compliance, calendar, all. And some of these apps, these are all the apps under the umbrella of Microsoft 365. Some of these apps have even separate bug bounty programs. For example, Dynamic 365, they have a separate bug bounty program. If you go to admin section of this Office 365, you will find Microsoft Azure and portal.azure.com. They have a separate bug bounty program. But by the end of the day, they all come under the umbrella of Office 365. So start setting things up, and as a starting point, you will see something like that. The next thing, why I am only focusing on Microsoft Bug Bounty program? Because in my experience, it's like a challenging task. It's not easy that you go and you find a bug and you got like thousands of dollars in return. No, it's not like that. Microsoft enjoys the manpower of in-house security professionals. There are more than thousands of people working for Microsoft security team. I'm not saying that they all are working for Office 365 pen testing, but still like a quality number of people are working for them. And their day job, their 9-to-5 job is to find bugs. They also have like a red team, blue team. So they enjoy the manpower. And the next thing they claim in the documentation, that Office 365 follows Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle. What is Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle? You can just type this word on Google and then you can read about it. Like the idea is that every step in the development of Office 365 has security integrated into it. There is a saying, I was hearing some keynote from some Microsoft speakers, and they say that the security is built into the heart of Office 365. The next point, every year, Microsoft hires NCC group, as far as I know, because I read the reports also. Every year they pen test Office 365. Like for 2-3 weeks, the Microsoft hires them. So, and last but not the least, they have a public bug bounty program. Even you, from a comfort of your own couch, you can also participate in Microsoft bug bounty program. So they have the manpower. They follow security development life cycle. They have the online bug bounty program and also audited by a third-party group. So it sounds challenging. The most important thing is that if you found a bug in Office 365, it's like a feeling of making an impact on millions of companies and billions of users. So without wasting any time, so now I'm going to share some of the bug findings that I think you may find interesting. The first is MSRC case 57985. The bug report or the bug title that I submitted in this case is like that: all your Power App portals are belong to us. Okay, and Microsoft has rewarded me $8,000 for this bug. But before we look at the detail of this bug, I would say those who are interested in bug hunting or those who are interested in the field of computer security, I would say just please read this book. This is a very good introduction about computer security. Access control. Because the bug that I'm going to explain related to access control, that's why I start with access control. Access control is about like authentication plus authorization. Authentication verify a user's identity, while authorization revolves around actions the user is able to perform, either they are authorized or unauthorized. Professor Dieter Gollmann said the user identity is a parameter in access control decisions. The bug now that you will see is insecure direct object reference, or you can also call it missing access control. Okay, this is how I already show you. This is how Office 365 looks like once you log in on office.com. One of the app you will see in front of all these apps like Calendar, Form, Excel, List, OneDrive is Power Apps. And if you read Power Apps, you can build mobile and web apps with the data your organization already uses. Okay, go to Power Apps. You will end up here. The site is like make.powerapps.com. The interesting aspect is that Power Apps is not in the scope of any bug bounty program offered by Microsoft. But this is like a top level URL, Power Apps. But don't give up. Just explore it. I am interested in the request this powerapps.com is originating, and you will see. Okay, on this screen, the thing that I am interested is portal from blank. What is this portal from blank? I read this line, like create a website to share data with external and internal users. Like they are allowing you to create a web application and you can share the data about your organizations to both internal and external users. Consider this Power App like a template, like a WordPress or Drupal. They provide a template. You can easily make your website. Is exactly like that. Okay. And once you have the portal created, you go to portal settings. Again, the URL looks like make.powerapps.com. But for me, the area of interest is the administration section of this Power Apps portal. If you go to the administration section, this is how it looks like. You can read here on this pop-up box or dialog box that you see additional details and perform advanced portal actions. Okay, let's move on. Address. I observed that all the Power portals end up either in Microsoft CRM portals.com or Power Apps portals.com. Static represent anything. Like this can be named ABC, XYZ. And if you observe earlier, and if you look at the top at the address, this URL ends in powerappportals.com. And if you go back on the previous slides, you see by default you can see here powerappportals.com, and this address section is under your control. You can write any name here. Sometimes they use here Microsoft CRM portals also. Like both options are available. I think CRM portal is for the older version, but now they are using Power App portals. Okay. Now I observed that both addresses, the addresses you have is either Microsoft CRM portals or either Power App portals. I immediately go to OAPS AMAS. It's like an in-depth attack surface mapping and asset discovery tool, because all these URLs are ending up here. So I wanted to make a list. So I come up with two lists. One that ends in Power App portals and one that ends with Microsoft CRM portals. Like I remember when I submitted the bug, there were like more than 1,700 sites that ends up in Power App portals or Microsoft CRM portals. And in the admin section of the portal, now look at all the features that is offering to me, like restart. I can get latest metadata translation. I can reset the portal. I can disable custom errors. I can change the base URL. I can enable maintenance mode. So a lot of actions I can perform on the portal. Okay. And if you go through the backend request, for example, one of the feature here is disable custom errors. And if you click and you via some proxy like Burp or Fiddler, you intercept the request endpoint is dynamics.com, portal admin-nam.portal-infra.dynamics.com. And this dynamics.com is in scope. This endpoint is custom errors. And it has a post parameter portal ID. Like you wanted to turn on the custom error, here it is true. The parameter I am interested is portal ID. The question is that how can I get the portal ID of the victim? How you as an attacker can get the portal ID or 10 product ID of the victim? The format, as you had seen, looks like this 32 digit GUID. Okay, I start browsing these 1,700 websites that I have a list from AMAS, and I found out in the source code, the answer you can find in the source code, because brute forcing this type of number is not easy. I think it's not feasible at all. Okay, if you have a number like 523 or 4 digit or 6 digit number, then you may try a brute forcing. But for this type of ID, I don't think so that brute forcing will work out. The answer, you can find it by looking at the source code. In the source code of all these portal sites, there is an inline script that is giving me the ID. So now I have the ID of a victim or my target that I'm going to attack. Okay. You can also do some other request. I show you just as a part of, for the sake of completeness, like you can also set portal maintenance mode. You can also do this, like once you set up portal maintenance mode, the victim will see site like website under maintenance. Once you set update portal certificate, the victim will see a server error. Once you update the like a change base URL, the victim will see the website not found. So with this IDOR, just by having a ID, which you can find it by looking at the source code, you can do whatever you wish to do. And now let's look at the demo of this bug that I found. So there are two different tenants that I have set up. These are complete two separate tenants, two different accounts. So as I said earlier, in the portal, I am interested in the settings, in the advanced settings, or in the administration part of. So this is how the portal site looks like. Contoso community, it's like any template, you can use it. There are many templates also available. And imagine like this is like a target website. From the source code, you can see the ID that you need for this IDOR, which is like a missing access control. For example, in this demo, I want to enable maintenance mode on a victim website. In maintenance mode, you can also define, okay, the site is under maintenance, but meanwhile, you can redirect it to some other website. So if the video quality is not good, I will share the slide. These slides will be available online immediately after the talk. I will tweet about that, and the link will you can see later also. You can enable maintenance mode by defining a change, like a custom page URL. For example, I say Google. The site is under maintenance, and this you should be redirected to Google. With burp, you can intercept the request. And in the request, you simply change the portal ID to the target that you wanted to, or that you wanted to attack. And if the victim will try to open his or her web application, which is like a CRM portal or Power App portal, also when I was testing, there are many accesses also I found during testing. So now if I refresh the page, this is like the target page that I attacked. And here you see, because the Google was using X-frame option, so that's why the page was blocked by the browser. Otherwise, you will be redirected to google.com. So the next case that I would like to discuss during this talk is MSRC case 54728. This case is about cross-tenant privacy leak in Office 365. This Microsoft has rewarded me like $5,000 for this case. Microsoft has nowadays a flagship product called Microsoft Teams, where you can set your status, like be right back, available, busy, don't disturb. And the same thing you can also do in Link. Link is like an Skype for business. So these state, and on the back end, they are using the same sort of APIs. So in this bug, as an attacker, I can see the victim, which is in different tenant, which belongs to different organization, that the victim is available online, he's offline, he is busy, what is his status, and I could do many other things also. So let's look at the video demo of this case. So there are two different tenants. I always set up like two different tenants, and every tenant has its own users. For example, in one tenant, I set up my status like available. And the backend request goes to infra.link.com. During this, like when I was testing these features, I found out that this me, like the endpoint is the end of me. I immediately thought that, can I change it to some other person, like some other email address that belongs to some other organization? And it works. So the presence, you can check the presence of the victim, which does not belong to your organization. Here you see it's online. Okay, now I change the status of victim to like say do not disturb. So this is the status of the victim. And if I check it now in a cross-tenant manner, I can see that the status is like now do not disturb. If I change the status, or victim status is, for example, like be right back, you can also found out that the victim is like be right back. His status is like that. So this is the case where the tenant is live, but there are different options also. Imagine that the user is there, but the user is not sign in. This was the case where the user is sign in. Now it will tell you an option like the user is now offline. So you can identify the availability of the user, of the victim, and in case if the tenant is like not alive, you can also see the tenant is like dead now. So I identified this is like a unified communication web API, and there are many things that I can do in this privacy leak issue. So these are the endpoints that I identified during the testing. Okay, so now let's look at some cross-site scripting bugs. I like cross-site scripting. So context. For example, if there is a website called example.com, you have a query access. The query goes to the server, and in return, the server responds. Once you look at the page, the response, either you have your query as a part of HTML context, as a part of attribute context, as part of a script context, as part of URL context, or a style context. Of course, we have a short window of time. We don't have time to see all these literally hundreds of accesses that I found in Office 365. But from that point, I will only pick like a URL context, and I will show you different accesses that belongs to URL context. What is like a URL context? For example, you see a feed like an organization privacy statement, and it is mentioned that please enter privacy statement URL. And once you did this job, by looking at the source code, you found out this URL ends up as a part of href attribute of an anchor tag. This is like a URL context. Okay, the question arises how to attack it. How to attack URL context. For example, if you are testing Office 365, how I approach it, how I try to test it, and why I am successful so far at as far as Office 365 is concerned. How to attack? The question, is there a methodology? Okay, there are, but you can make your own also. For example, I try to follow this approach. Attacking URL context revolves around JavaScript, data URI, which is nowadays not that much useful given it tied to a null region. VB script, which is like a sort of dead now, but for the sake of completeness, I added it here. And because no one pays you a bounty if you found a bug, that only works in IE browser, especially Microsoft. It is explicitly mentioned that they don't pay for that. Okay, but why you should go for JavaScript URI? Why you should go for data URI? So we should go for these payloads once the validation check, like a URL, should start from HTTP or HTTPS is missing. Then you start playing around these attack methodologies. For example, I always start with a simple unobfuscated JavaScript URI payload, like a simple JavaScript :alert one. Then I try to obfuscate, maybe with URL encoding, maybe with HTML5 encoding, maybe with hex encoding, maybe with decimal encoding. It's up to you. You can switch the position of these this flowchart also. It's up to you to decide. That's why I'm saying they make your own. I try to follow this, and I was successful so far. So develop your own methodology. For example, if I go through this fiddle, I assume that everyone can see the fiddle. Okay, this is like I start always with a simple payload. Then instead of a small parenthesis, I try to use the backtick. Then I try to use the HTML5 encoding. Here you can see decimal encoding, HTML5 encoding, Unicode encoding, a mix of Unicode, URL encoding. You can try different tricks. But all these tricks you start trying or you start applying during your testing once you are sure that they are allowing you to have this type of payloads. For example, if they have a validation check like, okay, they only allow HTTP or HTTPS, then making use of these payload is sort of useless. Okay. Now see some of the cases that are in different Office 365 applications, and they all are in URL context. I have like hundreds of accesses in different other contexts also, like HTML, attribute, but of course we don't have time for all these things. Okay, let's look at this accesses in Dynamic 365 site-wide help. Okay, Dynamic 365 is one of the applications under the umbrella of Office 365. It has a feature that you can change the help URL. Like help is available on every page of Dynamic 365. Every pop-up, every dialog box has a help section available. In this accesses, I change the help custom URL to a simple JavaScript URI. This is the payload. And if you click on, if anyone click in your organization in the help section, you can access it. I remember like Microsoft has awarded me like $3,000 for this bug also. Just as a part of demo, if you go to any other page, help is also available. And if you go to the help on this page, you will see an accesses here. So the next case, MSRC case 34779. Yeah, this is like an accesses in Microsoft support. Microsoft support offers like different URL, different apps are available in that you can integrate in Office 365. And once you see that some app is not doing good or you wanted to report a violation, at that time they use a URL like the parameter, the support or the get parameter looks like that. Raw visit the developer site. Like here you see, use this form to report a violation. For more information about the application, you can visit this website. This is under my control. So here you see again, as the methodology that I had shown you, the first step of the methodology is working here. Like no need to encode. If things you can achieve the job in a simple manner, why you go for complexity? The next case I would like to show you is 56250 case. This is in Admin Center of Office 365 WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get edited. So let's look at the demo. So this is Office 365 Admin Center. They have a feature called Microsoft Search. It offers different things like question and answer, bookmarks, and other features. And once you start exploring these things, they have a WYSIWYG editor available here, which is using, I think, Markdown. On behind the scene, they're using Markdown. So I simply change the link to a JavaScript URI payload, and it results in accesses in Microsoft 365 Admin Center. This is a Markdown payload. So please keep in mind the accesses that I am showing you right now, they all are in URL context, and they all are in different applications of Office 365. Like once you found a bug, so you always try to see that this at how many different places you can find the same type of issue. So this accesses in SharePoint main search bar. This is like a home page of SharePoint. Once you go to the SharePoint, they have this main search bar in SharePoint. Again, the payload is a simple JavaScript URI payload. I'm not obfuscating any payload because they allow me to have a simple one first. Again, this starts from the root cause starts from the Microsoft Search because they offer a feature called bookmark. And these bookmarks are available in SharePoint. Once you search for a particular term in your organization, the SharePoint search result shows this bookmark. They have a field like a URL. The URL is a simple JavaScript URI. And all these bugs that I am showing you are rewarded by Microsoft and now fixed also. So you search for a keyword in SharePoint, and here you see an XSS. The next case also belongs to this URL context XSS. This is in the SharePoint news web part. In SharePoint, you can add your page, or you can add more functionality in your page by adding a web part. What is web part? Is part of out of scope. You can see it's like an add-on on your SharePoint page. And once you, this is like a news link that I wanted to add on my SharePoint page. If I remember correctly, I think only in SharePoint I found more than 130 or 40 bugs. So Office 365, I would say once you have free time, I would suggest you to participate in Microsoft Bug Bounty program, and I hope you will also find some bugs. So I simply changed the URL to like a JavaScript URI based payload. And this is like a SharePoint. It's not a small application. It's an application used by millions of users around the world on daily basis. And these are the simple accesses that I found in SharePoint or different applications of Office 365. Here you see. Okay, the next case is MSRC 49797. Again, this is accesses in SharePoint Microsoft Forms web part. The last one was in Microsoft, SharePoint has a web part called News Link, and this is as a part of Microsoft Forms. Microsoft Form is also one of the application under the umbrella of Office 365. And in SharePoint, you can integrate different forms that are available. All these forms are also available as a part of web part. And of course, you need an address. And once you need an address, you should go for JavaScript-based URI payload. Once you see a URL, the first thing you should test for a JavaScript URI. Don't leave anything behind. Test every aspect of the application. So the name suggests the parameter name also has a URL as part of it. I changed the URL to a JavaScript-based URI. Maybe in some later talks, I will show XSSs in different other contexts. But for this talk, I choose this URL context. So there is a saying, bug always looks easy when you see it. So finding it at the first place is not that easy. So the next case is like MSRC case 49665. This is again in SharePoint. It's countdown timer web part available in modern SharePoint sites. So keep in mind that everyone missed these bugs, and I found these. The reason I was able to test these features because I think as soon as they are available, I start testing it. Because there are different tricks that that you can do in your tenant. As soon as the feature available, it immediately appears in your test tenant. Plus, I read the documentation. I follow some marketing persons of Microsoft 365, and they are good enough in sharing all these features that are available or in the pipeline. And as soon as the feature available, I try to test the feature. So you simply change the countdown URL to a JavaScript-based URI payload. And in Office 365, everything is shareable. You can create a perfect attack scenario because it's used by your organization, or in the organization, you can share everything in my Office 365. Every page has like a sort of share option. You can share by email, you can share by link, everything. So then the next case is MSRC case 34753. This accesses in Microsoft Windows Azure, where the return URI, like I was browsing this website and immediately I saw this pop-up message. The pop-up message is asking me to agree on something or disagree on something. And in the get parameter, you can see there is a parameter called return URL. And if you go to the source code, it ends up as a global.location.href. Change it to a JavaScript URI, it ends up in an XSS. The next case, this is again XSS based on JavaScript URI in Microsoft Dynamic 365 validate feature. In Dynamic 365, you can integrate SharePoint websites, and they ask me for a URL. And once someone asks me for a URL, I always try to see that JavaScript URI is allowed or not. So they're asking me to give a new SharePoint site. You can write any name here. The area of interest is this absolute URL. In order to bypass this client-side validation, I use this valid URL here because they have a client-side validation. Just intercept via burp and change it to a JavaScript URI payload. the the XSS you cannot see here on this page, but there is a feature you will see as a part of this video. The feature will appear called validate feature. And that feature shows me a different dialog box. And at that time, you can see the XSS. For example, once you select this URL, once you select this test SharePoint website, you see a feature called validate here. It shows you a new dialog box, and once you click on this URL, you can see an XSS here. Okay, the next case is 56083. Again, this XSS in Dynamics 365 all competitors section. So once you guys are testing any bug bounty program, and if you see a URL, if they allow you to enter URL somewhere, please try all these steps, and I hope you will find some bugs over there. There is no rocket science in it. These are the simple payloads that anyone can try it. But the point is that the main issue is that in order to reach to that point as a first person is the main thing. And Office 365 is a huge application. It's an endless, infinite number of features. So there is a great chance that the bugs are there, even though they follow security development lifecycle, even audited by a third party, still the bugs are there. It's a never-ending story. So I simply change this absolute URL to a JavaScript URI. So Dynamics 365 is painfully slow sometimes. So you see an XSS here. The next case is MSRC 40509. This was an XSS again in SharePoint where they allow me to change a get parameter, the get parameter called FNL. So when by default, it is using some HTTPS URL that ends up in SharePoint. So I replace it with a JavaScript-based URI payload, and this is an XSS in SharePoint. The question to you, I am leaving it, is what if there is a validation check? Or what if site is making sure that the URL that you are allowed to enter starts with HTTP or HTTPS? Then the question that I have to you, or that you may think, is then what would be your attack methodology? Then what are the options available? So please think and feel free to contact me at my Twitter handle. If you have any questions, feel free to send it to me via Twitter or via the organizer, and I would be happy to answer. And again, I would like to thanks to the organizers for having me in this virtual Cyber Week Hack in the Box conference. It's always a pleasure. Like I started my security career when I was in Hack in the Box, Kuala Lumpur in 2014, I think, if I remember correctly. So again, thanks for providing me an opportunity. So from my side, thank you.